G'day everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Um, Merry Christmas to everyone. I probably won't be doing one of these for a couple of days. All sorts of kid related stuff the next few days. So I'll try and, I guess, give an idea of where I think things are headed over the break. Just remember, it's pretty low liquidity environment. It can swing both ways, or it can just stay flat. I had a funny feeling it's probably going to work its way up over Christmas, New Year. All right. The this prediction looks like it may actually play out. The retest of that 50 EMA there was pretty epic. Just it left a massive wick behind, so we don't like seeing that before we actually going on a run to the upside. So it is coming back to it. It's not looking great at the moment. It actually it looks like it wants to take this low. It's coming down that hard, but I think if we do get some support again at either the 50 EMA or even the value area low here, that would be quite bullish. Now, stochastic momentum is still on a similar trajectory to the downside. BBWP is still increasing. It hasn't sort of maxed out yet by any means. So that's kind of something to definitely keep in mind. We want to see something similar to here. We just want a decent green candle off the bottom, engulf the previous day's candle, and big green wick to the upside is great. the issue is here, if you're not buying in on this on the way down here, then if you sold at the top, you're actually getting in at a worse price. So this is what you've got to be careful of with bull runs, is don't necessarily be out of the money for too long. And I don't think the bull run's finished yet, because we just haven't seen any decent news around why, like proper news around why this dip is actually happening. They're blaming some pretty menial things at the moment, and yeah, it's probably a liquidation event, getting all the retail longs out of the system. That would make a hell of a lot of sense, but that's not a structural issue with the economy or anything like that. So there is something under the hood that's going on as well. We know that from global liquidity, which keeps falling, and that's probably my only concern here. I want to see a turnaround in global liquidity before getting too excited about another run up. But as you'll see today, I am seeing some pretty decent signs around the place that we might actually be getting ready to turn around. So yeah, on the daily, might come a little bit further into this wick. Just like if we close around here on the daily, I'd say that's a pretty positive close to close above the value area low. Wouldn't surprise me if we wicked back down and retested this 50 EMA again and then pushed back up. Even if it closes above the 50 EMA and below the value area low, I'm not super concerned at that point. If we start closing dailies below the 50, then this might have just been a little high. It might have just come back into the value area. The point of control, and then move down. Because then the next move down, if we continue down and are closing below that wick, or even below this wick in particular, you would kind of expect it to come a fair bit more down, probably into the 83s. And I know there's some targets lower than that I mentioned in the previous video, but that's that scenario. Not necessarily expecting that at this stage, but at the same time, just be careful. I think that the good thing for us, just knowing that these vector candles are sitting up here, chances are we do come back up here reasonably soon. If you watch the Crown and Fiboswani video the other day, there's certainly some levels below here that you would still be in the bull run technically. All right, let's not dwell on that too much. One thing I wanted to have a look at was Sol, because Sol is kind of a bit of a bellwether for us. I think Sol's almost played out a technical target too. If you take this as sort of a range, no, it hasn't. Technical target, like if you just assume that this was a distribution range up here, and measured that to the downside, you're coming into the bottom of this wick here. Sorry, the bottom of this vector candle. I guess that's possible. Can't rule it out. Want to see a turnaround on stochastic momentum. That's the biggest thing here, which would actually be hidden bullish divergence if we turn around on this 200 EMA here. That would be an interesting level to turn around from. As you can see, it got a lot of buy up off that level. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I think the 50 EMA on the Bitcoin chart is so important, because it got a lot of buying interest. It did have good buy up off that level. So I'm just going to put a support there, and we'll see how we go. I don't expect these to be sort of massive vector candles to the upside. We could just get a smaller one, but if you're seeing vector candles off the bottom here, anywhere around here that sort of look chunky like this, like no big retracement, no big wick to the downside, that'll show you signs of a pretty strong turnaround. So yeah, Sol's a bit of a coin flip at the moment. It's running pretty hard to the downside. Like this thing here is a good sign of a pivot point. Like the fact that it came down and swept the low again, it's kind of just saying a big fuck you to the guys that went long down here, and had their stop losses down here. The fact that we went up from that, I mean, this is good liquidity sweeping before a run to the upside. If you're seeing this sort of pattern, especially a sharp turnaround on volume, then chances are it's going to keep going up. It's just you don't want to set your stop losses so tight that you get wicked out by these guys. So that was a good run up, good vector candle turnaround at the top there. Yeah, that was a good run, but it came down harder than what I would like to see typically. It's still getting a decent push down here too, on reasonable volume for a Sunday Arvo US time too. So a little bit concerning, but if it does turn around here, that is bullish divergence on the cyclic RSI. It could just be coming down back down here to freak some people out. And again, taking the liquidity that's sitting below here. So not the worst looking chart. The fact that we've, had some decent volume come in around this low area here, it seems like we're in an accumulation zone at the moment. Not necessarily just going to rip to the upside and keep going, but I would expect us to start building some momentum to the upside here. And again, this was the bottom of that wick on the daily. So good recovery of this wick. A lot of people are going to be freaked out here. We have recovered at least half of this vector candle, which is good. You want it to be putting in a higher low at some stage here. So that's Sol, and Sol's probably the one that I'm looking forward to really lead the way. XRP is holding up as well. I'd kind of expect XRP to come back a little bit further, just to recover a bit more of this wick. The fact that XRP is holding the top of this range here is pretty interesting, because you don't have a lot of vector candles until you get down to 89 cents. And at this point in time, I wouldn't expect XRP to get back down to 89 cents. There's too much interest in it now. It's getting decent buy volumes off these low levels here. I think a little bit further pullback on XRP and then a move to the upside. Like, you'd be lucky if you pick up XRP for $2. I think you're going to be in reasonably good stead for what's going to come in the next few months. I could be completely wrong. If we break down below this wick here, then it's going to come down a lot harder. So be careful with XRP. Like to see a turnaround on stochastic momentum, but that could happen within this region in here. So these two, I think, are the big ones to be on the lookout for. Mainly Sol, because it had one of the biggest runs, and it ran before Bitcoin, really, last couple of times. So just keeping an eye on that. XRP, just because it has had such a massive run and is holding the highs here. So yeah, I'm reasonably bullish on both of them at the moment. Just like to see confirmation of that turnaround, confirmation of the base. And, like, in all fairness, Bitcoin's really holding the highs as well. When you look at it, when you zoom out, this isn't the end of the world for Bitcoin by any means. So just, there's still a little bit of caution needed, but I think if we do get back down here a little bit further, I'll put my last chunk back into it. I've sort of been averaging in on the way down here. And when I say back into it, it's into the rest of crypto, not really into Bitcoin itself. What am I looking at? Oh, yeah. So let's come over here. Interesting, we did have... So this turnaround on Bitcoin on the hourly is a pretty sharp turnaround. It's the same sort of thing that we saw on Sol. Vector candle turnaround, that's a good sign that you're finding a base. It'll potentially come back and reclaim these vectors, but typically when you turn around that quickly at those points, it is a point of support. So especially after you've sort of rolled over so slowly, it's not like we're sort of ripping up and selling off really quickly. This is a gradual bring it back down. You can still fall through that, and if we fall through that, it's going to be a quick move to the downside again. But at this stage, not looking too bad. Just need to see what happens if it does come down this far. The thing here is cumulative volume delta still hasn't really found a base yet. It's still like we made a high here on Bitcoin. We did not make a high on CBD. I'd like to see a new high on CBD to really suggest that the market is liking this bottom. Interestingly, it's at a point here where the spot volume looks a little better than the rest of the CBD. So that to me suggests that, yeah, it's maybe starting to turn around. This isn't a bad sign that we're getting close to a base anyway. Interestingly, that's the lowest funding rate we've seen in ages right there, like literally since before the start of the bull run, I think, since here, 13th of October. So, yeah, I mean, typically that's happening around the lows before another run. That's not a bad thing either. Let's have a look at liquidation. So not really a lot when you zoom out to sort of 2 weeks and above. There's not a lot in the charts, but you're also comparing it to up around 320 million. That was typically high, or if you remember from the that whole bull flag that we had for 6 months, the liquidation levels were only around the 100 million. 120 was a decent liquidation level. Now you've got multiple in here on the way up and on the way down that were around 300 million. So it's always going to look not as good, but it's still around the 90 million down around the bottom of this wick here. So be careful of that. It kind of looks like it wants to come into that. But there is building liquidity to the upside for sure. So 200 million right at the top. But yeah, as we said, about 90 million down here. So might try and come a bit lower. There's not a lot for it. And low liquidity over the next couple of weeks could do some funny stuff. Like it could come down, sweep that, and then take off. Let's go to the ETFs quickly. Dollars. Bit of an outflow. Oh, that's, yeah, okay. No, that's the most recent one. So Friday saw a bit of outflow across all ETFs. Even Thursday did as well. Pretty decent outflow actually. Nearly $1 billion in outflows. But as you can see, there was plenty of inflows all the way down. So I don't think there's any major concerns in that at this stage. And the outflows are dropping as well, so that's good. CoinAnk. So this is probably your biggest concern if you're a bull at these levels. Now, a lot of these orders have come in sort of after the 14th of December, and they're starting to ramp up in the last 3 days. Typically, it'll go for the older orders, and the older orders are pretty well going to be soaked up by about 88K. Just in 88.5K, this will soak up most of the older stuff that's been sitting on the books. Don't know that we'll get into this. I think these guys are a little hopeful, but the possibility is still there. Open interest is starting to tick up a little bit after dropping pretty well since that little pump. So that's a good sign as well. We are starting to get an increase in open interest as it's coming down. Not huge levels yet, but you know, it's good. And plenty of orders to the upside. So 110 seems like it's going to be a hard level to get past though, looking at this. And the fact that we are so heavy on the orders to the downside suggests there is potential that we come back down past this wick, at least in the short term. Now, it's definitely not looking like a bottom at the moment. If you zoom in, so you're just looking at the most recent stuff, then Yeah, okay, it looks a bit more like a bottom here. But that was a pretty decent liquidation event as well, down to that point. So not a lot to go off. It's just more be careful of the orders down there. Now, interesting, energy sector is getting quite a few bids down the bottom here by the look of it. This doesn't look like selling by any means. This looks like dark pool buying. So that's not a bad sign because the energy sector's been slammed for quite a while, actually. Yeah, so been pretty well straight down. So the fact that there's some decent bids down the bottom here, that's a pretty good sign that the markets are going to start to shift to the upside. Same with metals and mining. They've been belted recently. Just have a quick look. Yeah. So these are getting a bid as well. Not as much. It's a little concerning, but they were getting a little bid down the bottom. Consumer staples is getting some bids as well. So that's a good sign. So consumer discretionary. Yeah. I mean, there's a bit of a cluster down the bottom here, which is good. Probably it wants to hold this level, I think. If it can hold this level, move to the upside, then that's a good sign that we'll keep going. Look, all the reads, there's a whole heap of reads out there. Everyone's doing all sorts of analysis on this drop. Typically, after something that big, there is a move to the upside over the next month or so. And typically, the dip doesn't last too long. That's typical, though. This is markets. So, Coinbase, this is the 3x leverage fund. Not seeing much coming in down the bottom here. So that's a little disappointing, a little concerning, but it could just be people are holding Coinbase at the moment. What's that drop? Yeah, it's a decent drop. There is a bit more coming in on Coinbase itself, just the stock itself. No one bought the dip here in a big way, which happened after hours anyway, but certainly there seems to be some interest around this level here. So I think that's not a bad sign either. What's that drop? Top to bottom, you got about 325 down to 260. Not a bad drop, 30% drop. That right there could be the 30% that we're looking for. XLK. So technology sectors, yeah, that's interesting. They look like a sell right at the end too. ProShares Bitcoin hasn't really got any major dark pool activity there. Unfortunately, neither has IBIT. Just gonna. So this is the BlackRock one. I'll just go just to see if we can pick something up. Probably too many, but fair bit of interest down here. That's too many. 20 largest. Yeah, okay. So there's definitely some trades in the top 100 down at these levels. That's not bad. Not bad at all. See what it is on the 10 largest. See if we're picking up one. Yeah, okay. We certainly bought that dip. There is a lot of clusters around here, so that's the other thing you got to look at. Like there is a fair bit of interest around this level, and I would suggest that they're probably buyers at these levels. So that's not bad. Now, sentiment trader. Smart money, dumb money, confidence. This smart money actually took a slight tick to the downside on Friday. Little concerning. Dumb money sort of ticked sideways as well. So, you know, you do kind of get this off the lows. You can get a little bit of a pullback in smart money before going again. But typically, when you're getting into the really low areas, yeah, there's a bit of chop on the smart money side of it. I think this is a pretty good sign. The fact that it hasn't ripped up a little bit more than this on the smart money, they do tend to come in slowly, um, but yeah, it's certainly dumb money. A lot of dumb money has been flushed out of the system. I think that's probably the biggest thing to take away from this. Like on all of these dips, the dumb money reading is lower than all these previous dips so far. But that there is probably a decent sign. All right. Not trying to look for the positives here. I just don't see that much of a negative there. The fact that we are so low on the dumb money compared to all these previous dips, I think is the main takeaway from that. All right, quick look at what happened on Friday. Yeah, pretty big swing, big volume, on a green day after a dip like that. That's a pretty good sign. I suspect it'll probably come back a little. Let's just go into. I don't think the weekend trading session's open yet. No, it's not. So, I mean, that looks like pretty good stochastic momentum level for it to actually bounce off. So maybe it won't come back too much. It is in the bearish control zone, so just be careful. And there are some vectors down here around 21,200 and even lower. But yeah, I think a bit of caution that it's probably going to be choppy. Interesting, that's not a vector candle. But a wick there isn't ideal. I think it'll potentially come down and try and just shake some more people out that have gone long with stop losses below there. But it doesn't have to by any means. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ candles like this can stay there. It's not like Bitcoin where we come into the wick really frequently. But yeah, I would expect something similar to this sort of thing off the low. A bit of a wick down and then move to the upside is potentially likely. Stochastic momentum's still got a bit to come if it wants it. BBWP hasn't fully reset or anything, but just means it's probably going to stay reasonably volatile when it does make its decision. Yeah, a bit of a doji there. Again, I'd say it'll come back down before moving up again. Equal weight. That's probably that's a better looking chart than the normal NASDAQ. So off a pretty good level there. Again, may come down a little bit, but I'm liking the look of this chart a hell of a lot more than the other ones, at least for continuation of a dip. Continuation of recovery. So SPY's similar sort of story. Big close above the 50 EMA, but like EMAs are general buying areas. You don't sort of bounce off them directly like you do with crypto quite a lot. So yeah, good big volumes down the bottom here. Good volume to the upside. Stochastic momentum's actually just ticked above the signal line there, so that's a pretty good sign for the bulls. Advanced decline line is making its way up as well. So advanced decline line is in support of a bottom here. It's just we're not seeing the support from the global liquidity line. That's fair to see a turnaround in that at the moment. If we don't see a turnaround in that, then I'd say watch out for around the 180 level on the equal weight. That's potentially going to be a lower high, which is not really what you want. But so here we go. IWM looks like it's wants to bottom as well. By all means, most of these are either still on their way down or in the bearish control zone. So we could still chop sideways for a little bit, especially in the low liquidity sort of half days and all that sort of shit that we're going to get over the next week or two. So be a little careful. But again, this doesn't look like the market's going to completely just shit the bed and go to the downside for months on end. XLR is finding a bottom as well. Same sort of thing as IWM. That's good. Again, XLY, XLP is suggesting that this is just a little dip. Equal weight one is actually looking very strong at the moment. So that's a good sign for markets. Interesting that we haven't closed above that on KRE. It should get back above there just based on where we are in momentum. But again, in the bearish control zone, so it could go sideways here for a little bit. But it has basically closed that gap. That's not a full gap close by any means, but geez, it's close. You'd pretty well say that's done. Yeah, I do expect any further pullbacks. I'm expecting them to be bought up. Even home construction and home builders have had a bid. Like that's a pretty massive volume that's come through there as well. Similar volume here off the bottom. So yeah, that's looking good for markets. I do still think this chart is telling us that real estate market has some issues, but I think we need to wait till it sort of makes another lower high on the weekly. So a lower high in here somewhere about around 120 or so on the weekly would suggest that we're going to probably roll over a little bit more. Certainly hasn't done that yet. That would look a lot worse, but have a quick look back here. Yeah, what you don't want to see is sort of that lower high, even a little bounce like that. But if this starts tanking past sort of previous levels, that's going to be the start of the recession, I would think. Not a bad indicator of recession. Still going to keep an eye on that. Same with home builders, same sort of deal. Yeah. July 07 was the breakdown from that previous low. On volume, just kept sliding. And a pickup in this is a pretty good sign that you're coming out of it as well. Although probably a little later than what the market will turn around. goes into recession earlier and it comes out later, typically. Yeah, I mean, that actually looks nasty on the weekly. That's not a great look at all. It might actually come down further. Daily suggests maybe a bounce, but geez, that weekly looks nasty. Maybe just a little bounce on the weekly and then more downside. Semiconductors getting a bid. Again, this hasn't really broken down any key levels, so that's kind of a good thing. It's coming off a pretty big bearish divergence here, though, on the momentum. So a little surprised it hasn't come back a bit further. So semiconductors may keep pulling back a little bit, which is weird to say, but DJT gold is still going down. So again, this is an indicator that the economy is not great. Just like long-term economy is not great. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think one of these might have been DJI. The industrials got a fair bit at the bottom. I'd be surprised if DJT didn't get one as well. And look, momentum looks like it wants to swing to the upside. I don't think it's going to be a V-shaped sort of recovery, but we're certainly oversold on this at the moment. Yeah, DJI got a pretty good buy off that bottom. VIX has pulled back, which is good. This can spike back up a little bit, so just be careful of that. But generally, that's a pretty good flush, pretty good reset on the market. You'd expect this to sort of come back down over the next week or so. But as I said, this is kind of the first shot across the bow for the economy. I think was this drop. Skews sort of still came back down, so that's suggesting maybe a little bit more downside at the start of this week. It didn't come down hard though, so again, it's kind of aligning with getting close to finding a bottom here. DAX has been smashed. A little double top here around resistance trend line, broken straight through that resistance trend line though. So yeah, probably a bounce up in to close that gap, but not looking strong. Again, there's a lot of talk around the German economy and the French economy being pretty weak at the moment, which is surprising given the DAX was so high. But Chinese market, not a bad spot for a turnaround if it wants it here. Putting in a higher low would be a good thing. So, and this is kind of supporting the markets might have done enough here. UK 100 got support off decent trend line there. Momentum's switching to the upside. That's not a bad sign as well. Again, probably come back down into the wick a little bit more, similar to this sort of thing. If you get a tweezer type formation at the bottom here, then that would be looking good. But at the same time, you'd be getting momentum to the upside. So Japanese market's probably the one that's a little bit iffy. I've no real read on that yet with 3 big volume days, and it's kind of just staying there. That's a little weird. There is actually a bit of a trend line on the momentum chart that it might want to adhere to. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly not looking unhealthy, that's for sure. But TLT got a big bid at these levels. As you can see there, that's a big bit of volume came through there. Same sort of thing that happened here. Again, dark pool activity was happening, both of these candles. it was right at the low here as well, so that's not a bad sign for treasuries, which means yields are probably going to go down, which means gold and stocks have the room to come up from those levels. High yield junk got a bid as well, so that's a really good sign. Don't think it was even off. We draw a trend line through here. Yeah, it's pretty close to that level actually. Again, might have a bit of chop, but pretty good volume. Engulfing candle there. That's actually a pretty bullish candle on high yield. So we'll see how we go there, but not looking too bad. This is the Aussie bonds, I think. Yeah, that's no real read on that one. This bond indicator is turning a bit. It's good. Zooming out. Copped a bid right off sort of this level here, actually. That's not bad. I mean, realistically, you want these to be breaking a new highs if you think we're going to go on a massive bull run. But yeah, not a bad sign there. Bit of a doji, but yeah. Yeah. So yields might be putting in a double top here on the 2-year. 10-year, not so much, but that looking like it might pull back. It would make sense if it did that, and if stocks actually kept going up. Copper is at a really interesting level. I mean, we're putting in. Technically, this is still a lower low, but we could be forming a bit of a base here as well. It's a fairly highly traded area. Gold, good bounce off that level. Funnily enough, this was the level that I had this at previously, just the middle of that vector candle there. Did well if you bought up that middle of the vector. I didn't end up selling my gold and silver. I just could be fucked. Been too busy with work to actually get in and do it. It's a longer term play anyway. So silver looks like it's getting a bid as well. So that's good. Bullish divergence on this as well, on the momentum. So that's actually a pretty positive sign there. Off a good level. That was a good support level that we identified last week. Oil looks like it wants to hold this trend line. It's good. If you think the economy's going well, then that's a good sign. Dixie pulling back from our 108, never really confirmed above that level. That was always going to be a big resistance level, but what you'd want to see is Dixie continuing to pull back from here. I think it's actually divergence on momentum as well. Bloody close. Yeah. Technically, it probably is just by a B stick, but should pull back, which is a good thing as well. Aussie dollar looks like it's basing. That's a good thing. Won't be out of the woods until we sort of clear this vector candle here, though, I think. Just be mindful of that. Euro, same sort of deal here. If we clear this vector candle and it's looking strong, then I'd say Euro will continue the upside. It's probably the same on Japanese yen. I haven't got that one. Volume chart though. Yes, same USD, Japanese yen. Japanese yen won't look properly strong until it breaks below this vector candle here, which it looks like it should. Like momentum, like momentum's in the control zone for these things. It's not a done deal yet, but the signs are pretty reasonable. Global liquidity is still staying low. We are coming into one of the lowest levels in a while, though. That dip around August. Um, yeah, I think I'm going to have a quick look at this on, let's do the 2 weekly. You can see we're still at sort of elevated levels for the most part, um, compared to history, that is. But you'd kind of expect that with all the money that's been pumped in with different schemes over the years. Yeah, just concerned about the fact that we've broken below that trend line on global liquidity. Um, yeah, it's not looking good for this for 2025. I think 2025 will be the year that we find the crash. It's just a matter of when, not if. Yeah, still looking for a turnaround in global liquidity. The fact that we've had 2 days that have basically stayed flat isn't a bad thing. We just want to see an uptick in this, like a decent uptick. Uh, Mag 7 had I guess a doji, decent day, decent volume. Uh, Good bounce here on percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average off a pretty good level. I think most of the like percentage of stocks above the 20-day and the 200-day and stuff have all come down to pretty significant levels and have found support. So that's a good sign. Tesla pulling back, no huge surprise. This will be an interesting level for it. Could come back potentially even into 360 before we see another decent run on Tesla. Momentum has just ticked out of the bullish control zone, but that doesn't mean a hell of a lot for Tesla. It can still turn around pretty quickly. But again, on decreasing BBWP as well. So we'll see. Tesla's a hard one to short. Just excuse me. At the moment, it's a bit cheaper than normal. Nvidia, it has found some support off this level, so not bad look there for the bulls. Highest closure in 4 days as well, 5 days actually. So Nvidia will probably go up. Good buying for Google. Would have liked to have seen it pull back a little bit more. And it potentially will. It's just could be quite choppy just off high BBWP at the moment. Hasn't really pulled back into that 20 EMA yet on the daily. So could be a bit of chop, but that's a pretty strong candle. RK getting a bid. Apple's looking the strongest out of everyone. It's gotten back above this trend line actually. Never really closed anything decent below it, and closed above the previous wick too. What's that? 254.28. Close was 254.49. Yeah, Apple's looking really strong. Triple M's looking decent. Amazon, not a bad day. Big volume. Very big volume. Kind of surprising off such a high momentum area. Yeah, just people buying the dip on that. Meta, not a bad level for a turnaround here. Again, big volume below, not a green candle, but still big volume. So a lot of interest at that level, I think. AMD. Well, AMD really needs to bounce around here. Really needs to bounce. looks like it will. Airbnb. Yeah. So SMCI is in a pretty high volume area. Looks like it might turn around. ASML similar. I think a lot of these are people are thinking these are pretty decent levels just because you're back into mid 2023 sort of prices on a lot of these, and even sort of middle of the bear market kind of prices. So you'll probably find some bid on these semis. We want to see that. We want to see the semis recovering and really leading the charge into another blow off top kind of bull run. Realistically, Stellantis, yeah, still looks shit, but same with Ford. That 2012. Geez, even Ford kind of was a predictor of the recession here too, wasn't it? Although it's been going shit for that long. Yeah. Wow, Ford got down to $1 in the recession. You see Ford hit $1, it's probably worth a buy. Okay, ASX 200. So it's pulled back as well. Found pretty decent bid off the 200 EMA. I'd be kind of surprised it didn't come back a little bit further this week. But at the same time, I kind of did predict that it would find a bit of a bid, and whether it makes a new high or not will be another thing. That could be a head and shoulders, as mentioned previously, but we'll see. All right, so yeah, markets generally looking like they're getting some support here. Even Ethereum's getting some support off that value area low. It did recover the majority of this vector candle, which we pointed out the other day as well. Yeah, I'm kind of liking Ethereum at the moment, which means I'm kind of liking altcoins in general. I was going to do ETH BTC. That's what I'm going to. Yeah, Ethereum BTC making a high low here would be a good thing for the market in general, to be honest. It may not do that though, actually. If Bitcoin wants to run it, this might pull back a little bit further. Oh, the other thing is, so we go to BTC USD longs. It's getting a bit of support here, but not a huge amount. Still like to see this tick up, but it's not the end of the world. The shorts are starting to close off. I think you'll see this drop pretty hard soon. Like, you want to see a big flush of the shorts before you get too excited about going further to the upside. Just going to this one here. So stable coins versus Bitcoin. It did recover this vector candle here on the dip, on that big vector candle to the downside, the wick to the downside. That's a good sign. And if we just recover this and then pull back, that's not. Well, it's going to look pretty good for Bitcoin, I would say. What you don't want to see, sorry, the reason I'm sort of looking at this, you don't want to see a closure above that wick for Bitcoin. If we do see that, it's probably going to go a hell of a lot lower. ETH BTC longs, someone actually had a little nibble there, but closed it pretty quick. again, I'm not really trading ETH, looking for much out of ETH, just because it hasn't got the interest in it in these longs and even the longs and shorts here. Like people are actually shorting ETH pretty hard at the moment. Uh, yeah, that's suggesting ETH's potentially got a bit further to go to the downside. Whereas you look at the BTC shorts, yeah, that's come up, but it's actually started to pull back already. Ethereum hasn't yet. So yeah, looking for this to start to really drop hard. All right, ETH dominance is still Bitcoin dominance. Looking okay, making a lower high at the moment by the look of it. That's not great, but it's a good thing if you're into the alts. Yeah. I think that's done for the time being. I'll do a quick 15-minute update. Again, good vector candle reversal here. Off bullish divergence on the RSI. The arctangent oscillator has ticked up out of its bearish control zone. This is a pretty good sign. The energy levels are reasonably low, so it's got a fair bit to move. Yeah, it looks like this is definitely an area where it wants to find support on Sol. A little concerned it's leaving a vector candle there on the 15-minute, but see on the hourly. Not a bad hit on the mid band of this regression channel as well. Don't worry about these buy levels. Still sorting that out. I mean that would be a good buy level, but yeah. Well, yeah, just a little concerning we're leaving vectors, but not super concerned about that. Again, it's another good buying level of bullish divergence on the hourly as well. So good signs for Sol. Let's go shorter time frame on XRP. XRP's left some pretty decent candles here. Big volume off that level. Basically the $2 level. As soon as people have seen it drop below $2, they've bought in. Yeah, not the end of the world. Looking pretty strong, really. As you can see here, though, there was similar sort of V-shaped recovery here with vectors down the bottom, and it did come back into the middle of these vectors here. So just be careful. Probably will come back in, potentially down just above $2 again, maybe even right on $2. But certainly, it looks like there's plenty of support for it around those levels. Let's get Bitcoin on the shorter time frames. Going to be something similar here. There's vector candles in here. That may, no, that should be, yeah. So we haven't really recovered that yet. So Bitcoin could come down a little bit more. One thing I am looking at is Sol versus Bitcoin. So again, just because I think Sol may actually run before it. Why isn't that one? Weird. Yeah, because I think Sol will probably lead the way on Bitcoin. Looking at this fairly closely, and plenty of sort of buying off that area, really. Plenty of support. Still not. Why is that? Runtime? Yeah, good on you. Anyway, decent volume here. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty bullish on Sol right now. more so than Bitcoin at the moment, and even XRP, to be honest. Just got to be careful of the selling the rips, but at this stage, if we do sort of push higher, this is a higher low technically. Yeah, it's not much to dislike about this particular chart. Yeah, I think that'll do me for now. Oh, one last 15-minute one. See if it's to actually run that analysis. Yeah, it's running it. Okay, yeah, bullish divergence here. Bitcoin's looking pretty good off this level as well. Again, it's left this vector candle here around 93. 92.5 was such a good level. That was a great level to buy off. But on this particular run, it hasn't left a vector on the buy side. So that's a pretty good sign. It just means that all through this area, like the last 10 green candles had plenty of volume. And this one here had good volume, but it wasn't enough to become a vector. So that's a pretty good sign in general that there's a fair bit of interest around this level here. You just got to be careful, like mindful. This is still in a downtrend on the 15-minute and probably the 1 hour as well, I think. So yeah, may pull back a little bit more over the next few days just to sweep some more liquidity, but certainly looking like the bull run isn't cancelled yet for Bitcoin and crypto in general. All right, have a good Christmas, everyone.